And the Lord led me to go back and to do a remix. Yeah, every now and then he sends me back to do a remix on a sermon I shared back in 2014. I woke up in the middle of the night before last, thinking about the words of that particular message that I shared back then, and realizing how much it is still needed today that I share it again, but to remix it to address really what's going on right now. So if you have your Bibles, and I hope you do, or your smartphones, turn with me to 1 Corinthians 13 and 11. And then I'll also use Ecclesiastes 4 and 8. 1 Corinthians 13 and 11 and Ecclesiastes 4 and 8. Paul writes in his first letter to Corinth, "When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." And then in Ecclesiastes, "For whom am I toiling?" he asked. "And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment?" For whom am I toiling? He asked. And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? Realizing the critical situation of this modern age we live in and just how things are going, especially in our community in this country, I want to talk this morning not about a few good men, but I want to talk about a few grown men. So join me as we discuss a few grown men. Take your seats in the presence of the Lord. In a visit to Greater Amani back in 1995, my friend Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu speculated by the year 2000, 70% of all black males would be unavailable for black women. They would be either in gangs, unemployed, imprisoned, or on drugs. Unfortunately, Dr. Kunjufu's predictions have come true, but not only did they come true, he underestimated the truth of his prophetic vision. Statistics show that right now, almost 74% of African American males in this country are either out of work, incarcerated, or on probation attached to the judicial system, on drugs, or as members of gangs. Our community is still starving for men who will operate with principles and with standards. Men who recognize their ultimate responsibility and destiny to uplift future generations. The writer of Ecclesiastes says, "For whom am I toiling and depriving myself of enjoyment?" Why do so many of our men fall and then fail in attempting to answer this question today? Our black men once had a ready answer to that question. They knew that they were toiling for their wives. They were toiling for their children. They were toiling for their families. They were toiling for their communities. For instance, when I think about men like Isaiah Montgomery, he knew the power of a man's capability. In the late 1880s, he carved out the town of Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Out of a wilderness, he carved out a town for freed black slaves. And others like him that carved out felt townships: Philip Payton, George Whitelaw Lewis, John Merrick, Joseph Lee, William Pettiford, John Mitchell. And here in Memphis, Samuel Fuller, that's who Fuller Park is named after. And countless others whose names are lost in history. Men who did not look for jobs but created jobs for themselves. Men who understood the question of ecclesiastes and responded to the times by not settling for handouts and menial work, but rather stepping up to a consciousness, a mindset, an awareness of their true predicament and finding a solution to it. These were not just good men, but they were grown men. Men like Jameson Lewis. You probably never heard of Jameson Lewis. A man who shined shoes on Beale Street when I was a little boy. Lewis raised 11 children, and all 11 graduated from college. Regardless of his age, he was always called boy, shoe shine boy. Lewis endured and suffered the indignity of his chosen profession by quietly amassing a fortune, smiling in shining shoes, earning more money in cases than the folks whose shoes he was shining. He was not just a good man, he was a grown man. Men like Ruffin Atkins, my paternal grandfather, who didn't finish the 3rd grade and could not read or write until I taught him how to sign his name. Ruffin Atkins was a man who swept floors of a sawmill, being called boy every day of his life, even into his 70s, referred to as a boy. But he made a commitment to raise his son, William Allen Atkins Sr., my father, and ship him off to Memphis, Tennessee, so that he could get a college education. Men like Ruffin Atkins, grown men. Men like James Henry Kerr, my wife's father, who also was from Mississippi, refused to work for anybody and only worked for himself, refusing to bow down to the indignation of segregation and discrimination. James Henry Kerr raised 8 children, 3 sons and 5 daughters, and provided for them by picking up and selling scrap metal, junk. Dealing in junk and unwanted items, he paved a course for his family and gave an education to his daughters and a legacy to his sons. Unfortunately, many of our men have grown up without any idea of who they are or how they're supposed to be in life. Products of many single-parent mothers who did the very best they could, but because of being women themselves, they were incapable of giving these boys any idea and certainly no concept of black male awareness. We're now living with a throng of these fatherless boys who stumbled into manhood with errant concepts and errant misunderstandings. On the other hand, quite a few of us who did have fathers did not have the best role models as fathers. For so many of us, even though we have values of faith, we're often less outspoken or passionate about the faith like our women have, because our fathers didn't pass his faith on to us. Because we were not brought to church by our fathers, we were brought to church by our mothers. Many have blank pictures regarding how to love and how to be loved as husbands. Blank pictures regarding being good fathers. Blank pictures regarding hard work, sacrifice, and dedication. Blank pictures of what responsibility is really all about. The other day here, 2021, I looked at 5 young men walking down the street, all with their pants sagging down on their behinds. And I wondered what could be possibly in their mind to even think that they can live such as that. What kind of culture would suggest that this is okay? What kind of culture would say it's all right for you to look like a complete idiot? No legacies were given to them. No mantles were handed down to them. No legacies presented to them. Too many of our black males aimlessly wander through life confused regarding true manhood, boyish and immature. With their pants falling down, they display the unwillingness to gird themselves with belts as given in the Bible. In Acts 12:8, Peter was told to gird himself. And an angel said to him, "Gird yourself and bind on your sandals." And so he did. And he said unto him, "Cast your garment about you and follow me." Peter was told that if you're going to follow the Lord, you must gird yourself. Every grown man understands the importance of a belt. Belt holds up the pants. Belts secure the clothes. Belts keep the clothes in order. Belts are tightened about the waist to keep the man from embarrassing himself. Belts provide neatness, and belts give definition to the masculine physique of the man. There was once a time when men were concerned of how they would be perceived. They took pains to be better. They took pains to look better than those who did not care much about themselves. The old man used to say, boy, get a haircut. Boy, iron your pants. Straighten yourself up. Look like you're somebody. If you ain't got a dime in your pocket, look like you're worth $1 million. Get that bow out of your back. Stand up straight. Wash your face. Comb your hair. Look presentable. Look decent and in order. They would suggest that we need to not look beyond the observed anatomical characteristics, primarily the genitalia, to determine if you're a man or not. Your genitalia does not make you a man. True manhood goes far beyond physical strength and anatomical definition. Manhood is a point of achievement that is gained through maturity and seized responsibility. Yes, responsibility is not just given to you, you have to go out and seize it. You take it upon yourself. It's a coming of age. It's a rites of passage. There's an argument that suggests manhood is a mentality, a mindset that operates with the same principles as does the biology. They suggest that it is a mentality dictated by appetite and physical determinants. This mentality is guided by instincts, urges, desires, and feelings. In other words, men tend to act like men. But the reality of the present time concludes that there are so many men who do not tend to act like men, but act like boys. So regardless of their chronological age, they have the mindset of boys and not of men. Another visitor to Greater Money many years ago, my friend Dr. Naeem Akbar of Florida State University, wrote in his book, Visions for Black Men, he said, a male is a biological creature, a boy is a creature in transition, and a man is someone that has arrived to a purpose and a destiny. When men become real men and do not confuse their maleness or their boyishness with their manliness, they've come to a true rediscovery of who they are. Dr. Akbar says there are problems with those who confuse their biological functions with their spiritual function as men. There are problems with boys who masquerade as men, who enjoy playing games, who enjoy fast cars, who enjoy listening to loud music, who enjoy getting high, who enjoy running after women, who enjoy running real fast rather than being ready and steady to be responsible for someone else. This is why I've come to the pulpit this morning. This is why I'm offering a remix of this sermon that I shared back in 2014, because we haven't come very far since 2014. It was Booker T. Washington who said, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, but by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed. It's what you've overcome. It's what you fought through. It's what you dealt with. It's what you handled. It's what you survived that makes you a man, my brothers. Imagine the different course we might be on right now if people like Rap Brown and Stokely Carmichael and Eldridge Cleaver, Bobby Steele, Huey Newton, militants of a past generation, what if they had taught about economic power? What if they talked about male power, male economic power? What about if they taught about economic development in the communities? Where might we be today if their dialogue had shifted from just the militancy of the age to an understanding of what economic power could really be? The Bible gives us an illustration of manliness and understanding of manhood with Jesus. It says that now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast, and when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and they sought him among their kinsfolk and acquaintance. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished of his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? And they understood not the saying which he spake unto them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth, and was subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor of God and man, even though he was only 12. Jesus is proving that true manhood is a state of consciousness. It is a spiritual arrival. What is consciousness, Atkins? Well, consciousness is awareness. Well, what is awareness? Awareness is the ability to see accurately what is. Therefore, being able to see accurately means that one must properly be oriented in space, time, and person. Space, time, and person. This is what Jesus is doing outside the temple at the age of 12. He's stating the case to his mother and father that he is now keenly conscious and aware of his space. That's where he is. His time, his age, and his purpose, his Father's business. He becomes aware at the age of 12 that manhood is upon him, and he must assume his manhood. In other words, he's saying it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up. There comes a time in a boy's life when he's got to know, okay, I've played enough. I've had enough fun. It's time to grow up. This is what Jesus is doing outside the temple. He is stating the case to his mother and stepfather of who I am. Space, time, and purpose. God, through the natural process of nature, raises up men when they are needed to carry on the work of tending the garden as Adam had to tend the garden. We don't have to be perfect. Adam wasn't perfect. Adam sinned and lost paradise. But Adam regained his understanding of who he was and what he was toiling for. And though his punishment was he'd have to toil by the soil and he would work by the sweat of his brow, he became the man that he must be to take care of his wife Eve and the children that they would bear, and that he would toil all the days of his life to care for those that he loved. What else is a man other than someone who toils for those that he loves? What is a man that is taken care of by a woman? He's a child. I'm going to say it again. Don't get mad at me. What is a man that is taken care of by a woman? He's a child. If a woman marries a man that she must take care of, she's just given birth to another child. Oh, I know. I'm well aware. I can hear the folk arguing and fussing right now. They don't like my sociology. They don't like my anthropology this morning. They don't like my logic. They don't like what I'm saying because they can think of all kinds of reasons and excuses for men that are not being men. Why is your favorite store where they sell gym shoes? I have a pair on now, but I don't wear them every day. Where's your suit, brother? Where's your hard shoes? You love your Nikes, but what about some Johnson Murphys? What about some Cole Haans? What about some floor shines? I can just hear folk getting mad at me. Oh my God. Why don't you have a pair of hard shoes? In the Kevin Hart character that he always plays, Kevin Hart is a bumbling, stumbling, weak, pathetic boy who pretends to be a man. That's how he's made millions. And man's true nature is not a nature of weakness and ineptness. Now, Kevin has made millions playing this role. We shouldn't aspire to be like him. Just laugh at him because he's doing his job. He's making us laugh. His ineptness, his weakness, his stupidity sometimes. Yeah, it's funny. But that's not a role model. That's a comic. And we can look and laugh and enjoy him and appreciate his skill and his talent as a comedian. But in real life, we can't be pathetic little boys. We can't be little weaklings. And I'm not talking about physical strength either. I'm not talking about how you can box somebody's eyes out. I'm not talking about how you can fight, because that's not true manliness either. My grandfather, Bill Adkins, was about 5'3" tall, and I doubt if he ever played any kind of sport in his life. But what made him a man was he went to work every day and brought his pay back and paid bills. That's what made him a man. It wasn't the fact that he could whoop anybody or fight anybody. He was a little man. He was a short man. But yet, he was manly, and he had a spirit of manliness, which meant that he understood what he was toiling for. He had a wife, he had a son, and they were sharecroppers, and he had a vision and a future for his son, and that vision was to get him out of this cotton field and to get him to Lemoyne College, where he could get an education. He would not get it for himself, but his vision as a man was to get it for his son. And if a man does not think about a legacy for his sons, what is he thinking about? A man must think about the legacy of his sons. And if you're a single parent mother, you've got to think about your son, realizing that you need to raise this boy up to be somebody's wife, somebody's husband one day. You don't need to raise him up just to be your child, but you need to groom him, mama. You need to groom him and raise him to be somebody's husband one day. God needs grown men to stand in the gap between sinfulness and godliness. God needs men like Adam. God needs men like Isaiah. God needs men like Nehemiah. God needs men who know they're men and stand as men. Men who will stand for what's right and stand against what is wrong. Men that have principles and standards in their life. And maybe we've forgotten what principles and standards are. What is simply this: a standard is a place that you know you will not go. You will say that you have principles. And used to be a time when families would say things like that. You know, they said, now we Joneses don't do that. We don't act like that. Come on now. Daddy would say, now we Smiths, we don't act like them folk. We don't go out and act a fool like that. We have a principle. We have a standard. And we live by that standard, and we live by that principle. And we raise up our children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And we teach our children respect. We teach our children responsibility. We teach our boys especially. We can't continue in life losing our men to the prison systems. We can't continue our communities losing our men to drugs and gangs. We're killing each other on the streets of Memphis like it's World War III, 4, and 5. And why? Because we're boys. They're boys. They're not men. They're playing with their gun toys. And they're living out things they see and the way they think they ought to be. And they're shooting indiscriminately at each other and spraying bullets in our communities, killing innocent children. And they want to be called men, but they're not men. And our relationship with women goes beyond sex. Now I'm going to say that again, y'all. Our relationship with women. I heard Percy Slade say, when a man loves a woman, He'll give her everything that she needs. When a man loves a woman, he does not just love her for her body. He loves her as a partner. He loves her as someone that is dear to his heart. And he wants to care for her. He can't stand to see her without. So he'll do all he can to make sure she will have. He can't stand to see her sweat and toil without him sweating along with her. Now, I may sound like a dinosaur because I'm going to go back real old here now. But I thank God what I saw when I was a child. And my mother and my father, at least the times that they were together, because they were not always together. There were many times I was the product of a single parent mother because my father was gone. But there were other times when he was with us. But more importantly, he took me to Mississippi, and I watched my grandmother and grandfather. They lived in a shotgun house out in the cotton field outside of Greenwood, Mississippi. Now, if you don't know what a shotgun house is, and I know some of you young folk don't, they call it shotgun because you could look through the front door and see the back door. There was a living room. Come on, y'all. Y'all remember? There was a kitchen. There was a bedroom. And there was a back door. We called it a shotgun house. They had an old mule named Jacob that I unfortunately killed because they used to plow with the old mule all day long, and me and the boys would get on the mules and race each other in horse races all night long. And I didn't know that if I raced the old mule all night long, he couldn't plow 40 acres tomorrow. Unfortunately, I came to the barn one day and Jacob was feet up. I think I wore him out. But that's just the funny side of the story. I saw that old man walk behind a plow. He didn't have a John Deere tractor. He didn't have a Caterpillar. He had a plow pulled by that old mule. And if you don't think that's hard work, you ain't got an idea of what it is to break the soil. The mule pulling and you pushing. And I saw that old man get so tired that he had to go sit down under the shade tree. And I saw my grandmama come out there and throw that rope over her shoulder and grab that plow and say, "Giddy up, mule." And she would pick up where Granddaddy left off. And now I see Granddaddy after he got his rest. He'd get back up, he'd start plowing again. And the old woman, she'd head to the kitchen, chop wood, get ready to put a dinner on. No gas, no electricity. And I saw how they worked together. I never saw him kiss her. I never saw him hug her. But they stayed together 57 years. Now come on, somebody, pray with me. I want you to get this, because we think too much of the sex. 57 years. I never saw him kiss. I never saw him hug. But I saw the dedication. I saw that old man work and work and work. And I told you before, he brought the money home and he set it up on the mantle. And Grandmama had a little more education than him, so she paid the bills. But he'd put his pay up on the mantle, and Grandmama would go and take from that money everything that she needed to pay the bills, and she would leave him a couple of dollars. She'd leave it on the mantle. And the old man would go get that $2 and put it in his pocket, and that's what he kept in his pocket through the week. To buy him some snuff. Yeah, he likes snuff. He loved potted meat. Some of y'all ain't never seen potted meat. He'd buy him some potted meat and some sauce. Y'all don't know what that is either. With some crackers and get a red soda water. And that'd be all that he would need. But every other dime that man put on that shelf. And every day that man came home, dinner was cooked. My grandmama didn't believe in sandwiches. She said if it wasn't on a plate, it wasn't fit to eat. She wouldn't dare make him a sandwich. That man came home to a plate of neck bones, pigtails, pig ears, pinto beans, greens, cornbread. So you can walk around with your pants hanging off your butt if you want to. But that old man wore a whole deck jeans with the big straps on his shoulder. And he was my example. Without saying a word to me, he taught me what a real man was like. Without ever having a conversation with me about it, because we learn with our eyes more than we learn with our ears. And I watched him. I never heard him complain. He just went to work and came home. And that woman, she loved him. She made sure that he had hot food to eat. She made sure that his Sunday go to meeting suit and shirt was clean and ready. And she shined his shoes. So that on Sunday morning, when they would go to the Great Open Door Church on Florida, her man would look right. Shoes shine. Shirt on with some starch in it. Tie around his neck. She made sure her man was right. Why? Because she loved that man. And she didn't have to say a whole lot of words. She didn't have to be cuddly and petting all the time. But she loved that man. And he loved that woman. And I wish that so many others could see that kind of love that goes beyond your figure. Because figures don't last always. You may be a 36, 22, 36 now, but baby, let time come on and you might end up a 48, 40, 52. But when you love somebody, you'll grow with them. And if they grow out, you'll grow out with them. And it won't matter to you. Because you didn't fall in love with 36, 22, 36. You fell in love with her. The essence of her. Of what she was and who she was. And that old man used to say one thing. When I die, he said, the last face I want to see is that of Mary, my grandmother. He said that often. The last face I want to see is that of Mary Adkins. I never saw him kiss her. I never saw him hold hands. But he was a man. A real man. So God is not just looking for a few good men. God's looking for a few grown men. So grow up, my brother. Get off the game machine. Get off the drugs. Stop playing like a child. Put on some shoes. Get your hair cut. Stand up straight. Get a job or make a job. But get up and take care of your woman and take care of your children.